Hello, thanks for dropping in. What we have here is a 2040 disk drive, which of course, like most such drives, has really been upgraded to a 4040. I just have to give this a little test, and of course the first test on any drive like this is to turn it on. And that it's exactly what we should hear. It should chatter. Both drives should do that. They should spin, and then we should hear silence. Maybe I'll do that again. I didn't really pay attention to what the LEDs were doing. Okay, so all three of them came on. Then the drive ones come on, nothing happens, and that's probably good. Some of the later drives had LEDs in the front here, the error ones, that were lit up with power, and they'd be green, and then they were like a dual LED, and then they'd be red if there was an error. So this is an early drive for the Commodore PET. It used an IEEE interface, and most people would connect it directly to the IEEE port on the PET through a PET to IEEE cable, and then other devices would be attached to the disk drive, and maybe a printer, maybe a modem. Those would be the typical things, or maybe more than one printer, but they would be daisy chained. Now, the printer could be the first thing in line, but most people, the typical setup I remember was the PET in the middle, the disk drive on the left, the printer on the right. But, it depended on what was what. Because some people, of course, had printers farther away, maybe with a longer cable, and the really loud, beastly printers were sometimes in these special noise reduction things with all kinds of foam so that it wouldn't sound like a machine gun. Especially, this was more like the daisy wheel printers. Anyway, so far, this drive is looking fine. I'm sure it's fine. It came from a very good home. It's going to a very good home. And I'm just the intermediary for the short time that it will be here. But what I do want to do is hook it up to probably I call it the number 5 PET, but it's a 4016. It has basic 4 in it. And I'll run a few tests here and there to see what's what. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure it's dandy. But, the other thing is that, of course, the cable is required. And I do have some PET to IEEE cables, which are different from IEEE to IEEE cables. See, the PET has like an edge connector. So you have to have a connector on the end of the cable that goes on the edge connector on the board, and the way it goes. And you also have to be careful that this thing doesn't get like pulled or yanked, because it can try and kind of slip off a bit. At the disk drive, the IEEE cable can be kind of screwed on, but I don't believe that there's any way to screw on or secure the PET to IEEE cable. So you must be careful when you're shuffling the machine around or doing anything, or make sure that better to have a cable that's too long than too short. Because if it's too short and it's sort of reaching and straining and always kind of getting stretched a little bit, especially if you have to tweak the machine or do anything, then the cable can kind of slip off a little bit to one side, and then things will go squirrely. You also have to make sure the cable is the right way up, but typically any of these cables that came from Commodore, if the logo is on the top, that's the top of the cable. Thankfully, I have never heard of any damage being done if you put it the wrong way. I think the lights come on and it's basically saying, oh, turn the cable over. Same with the user port. I've never heard of any damage being done if you accidentally put things on the wrong port. Now, the IEEE cable with the PET end on it is, if you look at the user port and you look at the IEEE port, there are little notches in there, and there's supposed to be little plastic things in the end of the cable that make sure that you can't put it on the wrong port. But of course, these little plastic things, well, they come out. So just make sure, as best as you can, before you plug it in, that you know where the IEEE port is, where the user port is, and that the cable's the right way up. Of course, these connections should be made when the machine, both machines, the PET and the disk drive, are off. And another way to tell if you're actually connected properly to the PET is if you turn the disk drive on, wait till it goes through its cycling, and then turn the PET on. If you are connected to the IEEE port, the drive, both drives, the whole thing will do its same sort of routine. It's been reset. So anyway, so here it is. I'm letting it warm up a little bit here, and then I will seek a cable, and I think I'll have to shuffle the PETs around here a little bit because right next to it is a 2001, and it does not have basic 4.0. And what does that mean? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that means that I would have to essentially use Commodore 64 commands like load $quote, $8 and other such things to get it to do things. I don't know. Maybe I should try that. Anyway, here is a piece of Commodore history. A CBM Model 2040 dual floppy disk drive. Or they say dual drive floppy disk. And, you know, there are magical things you can do in these drives. For example, you want to copy a disk, you issue the command backup D0 to D1. And it's all done within the drive. It just goes and does it. Same with the copy command. This was a good way to defragment things. The backup will copy every track and sector exactly as it was, where it is, put it in the same place. The copy command, it takes longer, but it will do one file at a time and copy it, and it will end up, if you do have fragmenting problems, it will copy them one at a time and put them in a very efficient way on the disk. Because the defragmenting, or the fragmenting, happens usually with data files that there's something added, there's something changed, there's something moved, there's something, you know, it gets longer, it gets bigger, and depending how much space is left on the disk. Kind of like with the Amiga 1000, if you put in the Workbench disk, it grinds. Oh, it grinds and grinds and grinds. Whereas the Kickstart disk is very quick, very efficient. It's just click, 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 done, done, done. Yep, I'm fine. But the Workbench disk, oh, it goes everywhere. I'm not sure if doing a copy would help that or not. It's just the way it is. So, thanks for being here to see this dual disk drive 2040 upgraded to a 4040. But when you upgraded, they didn't send you a new decal for the front. You just needed to know. Some people, of course, would take a little Dymo tape, stick it on the front and say 4040, or they put something on the back. You know. It's funny, you know, when you talk about the decal, there's a big status thing. Like if you had an 8032 and you'd upgraded it to an 8096 or a Super PET, it still didn't say it. But some people desperately wanted to have that logo, that label, those added numbers. So who knows, maybe through Commodore you could order such things. I know there are people that make these decals now, and I would say if people are upgrading things or refurbishing things, they're handy. Certainly a PET doesn't look like a PET unless it has the logo and stuff. etc. on the front. It just anyway. All right. Well, thanks for coming. Stay tuned as we'll give this drive a few operations to perform. So, signing off from the pet room, David Bradley. Have a lovely day. Keep your stick on the ice. Bye for now.